Hello everyone, this is In-Game Arthur with another boxing, another offline product game review. This is Gal Guardians, or Grim Guardians, Demon Purge for the PlayStation 4, but being played and tested on my PlayStation 5. To jump right into it, this physical copy here comes with the update version 1.02 on disc, but sadly there was an update available. This update size was 157 megabytes and will take you to version 1.10 since the time I make this video. Now, like always, I play all my games completely offline with an unregistered account, and I didn't experience any massive game-breaking bugs or issues for the single-player experience of the game. But I was still unlocking trophies with my unregistered account. Now, to go into about the subjects of the game, to explain real quick about the reason about Gal Guardians and Grim Guardians, is apparently there was a copyright problems with the term Grim Guardians, so the developers or the publisher decided to change the name to Gal Guardians, which is weird because this is based on another franchise, Gal Gun, which named Gal, and it has the characters from that series, so why would you change the name to Grim Guardians? It seems like Gal Guardians would have been the one you would have went with to begin with. Now, Gal Guardians is a semi-Metrovania style game where it's definitely built on the ideas of Metrovania, but it doesn't have some of the, how to say, ease of use and luxuries of the Metrovanias. But I want to talk about my experience real quick. The game ran pretty well smooth from beginning to end. I did notice some minor little hiccups that the game mentions that they bug fixed in the game. Like certain moments I did a certain interaction and my character didn't seem to interact or act as quickly or smooth as I would have liked. Nothing massively game-breaking bug, and thankfully the game really isn't that difficult, especially even with the higher difficulty of like limited lives and knockback. I barely died in the game. The only times I really ultimately died is when I fell to my death. Most times I really didn't have any real issues with bosses or enemies in the game. Maybe a few times, but at the end I had like 30 or maybe close to 40 extra guys, so no real struggles there. So there wasn't really any big gameplay bug problems or anything like that. You might, like I said, you might notice some minor hiccups, but nothing that left progression stopping for me. I did go ahead and check out multiplayer, and well, this is where the game is broken in some departments. The game ran smoothly and fine for the multiplayer, but for some reason, the second player's compass would always display. You couldn't disable it, and even when the first player turned on their compass, it stayed on longer, but it did fade away over time. But the second player basically has it on all the time. This does not leave the game unplayable for two players, but it would be very, how do you say, uncomfortable and unfair for the second player to constantly have this compass in front of their screen the entire time, which is disappointing because that could have been a big selling point to Gal Guardians, is its two-player Metrovania style game. So it is really disappointing on that. So if you're going to expect to pick this game up for two players, then I wouldn't recommend it unless you're a second person who plays second player really doesn't mind the thing on the screen for them. Now, I talked about, like I said, it's semi-Metrovania. It works like a Metrovania. You play it, you unlock abilities, you unlock little stuff. There's a secret ending, and there's a bad ending, and there's a good ending sort of kind of thing, depending on all the collectibles you gather. But the two biggest glaring flaws in the game is that there is no map. Now, there is a semi-map when you're picking which region to teleport to, but it doesn't really display that much information, and nothing you can crucially get any detailed information. Now, this wouldn't have been that big of an issue if they didn't have this other problem. There is no statistic to let you know how far you've progressed in a specific area or if you've gathered all the items. And there is a lot to gather. There is like 32 students scattered out throughout the castle, as well as there are 40 panties scattered out throughout the game as well. And there is no indication to let you know if you found them all in particular regions, or if you found all the students all together. The only way I was able to get confirmations is with trophies. I would see the trophy pop up saying you found all the panties, you found all the students. That was the only way to know that I found everyone. So that's a big problem. Now, for the most part, it may not have been that big of an issue, but with so much collectibles and a helpful advice, it is a bit of a spoiler, but it's very helpful. When your first time you play this game, don't worry about gathering up everything. Just play the game normally like you're playing a typical classic side-scroller. Just beat the game first and then run through the game again trying to gather up everything. It will make your experience a lot smoother and more enjoyable for you. And another little annoyances that I did have was that the character voice lines. Well, you can change it between English and Japanese. It doesn't really matter either way. The characters repeat their voice lines a lot. Where like, if you jump and shoot, or like she'll say, "Stay back," or then, "Haha, defeat you," or "My Uzi demon gun." She'll repeat these lines constantly, and it really gets really annoying pretty quickly. Luckily, I've gotten used to these kinds of elements in games, so I can really drown them out. But even then, there were times where I was just like, ugh, man, this is one of the things I hate, is just constant repeating lines, when you really don't need that. Other than that, there's nothing really else truly wrong about Grim Guardians, or Gal Guardians. I don't know which one is the canon one. It's nothing really new. I mean, the only newer thing they have is the two-player element. We could switch between the characters, which works and functions relatively good, even in single-player. It's just, there's nothing really big and new, innovative in the game. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it had some good soundtracks, the story is wacky and kooky for the Gal Guardian franchise. It is interesting that this game, that, if I recall, was an on-rail shooter where you basically shot girls with like some love gun or de-love gun to prevent them from trying to attack you or something like that, trying to seduce you. It was a different approach. Now, I prefer this more than the on-rail shooter just because now I'm a Metrovania fan and a sprite graphic fan at that. But I do kind of hope they aren't departed from the on-rail shooter, because I thought that was a very unique and different game. We get plenty of Metrovanias from indies, and I mean, not to say that on-rail shooters are the most innovative games, but I like variety, and it's a little disappointing that we haven't seen a newer one yet on the Gal Gun on-rail shooter. So, not that I have any problem with them going with the Metrovania style, but it's just, I like variety, and I hope they don't abandon one of their core mechanics that the game franchise, the Gal Gun series and stuff like that, is known for. Overall, it's still worth a pickup. It's still enjoyable, even with its little minor hiccups and problems and stuff like that. I will provide a link to a person who has provided in-game maps for the game, so you can try to figure out where everything is. It is in Chinese or Japanese, not entirely sure, and you can just use a translator, but you really don't need it. You can figure it out pretty quickly. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, I'll provide links. It helped me a lot near the end of trying to find all the panties and all the collectibles and stuff like that, so I can 100% complete the game. And I got all 3 endings of the game, and it was overall a really enjoyable experience. Nothing new, nothing creative, nothing that left me like the pinnacle of Metrovanias, but it has some kooky ideas and clever designs and stuff like that, and the level design was interesting. Just, I don't know what possessed them to not have a decent map or a percentage item counter to let you know if you've completed an area. Those are the biggest flaws in the game, and some may say it's like a callback to the old days, which I get that, and I am a retro gamer, but the point of making a retro game nowadays is to remove the problems of older games and improve the games with nowadays modern ideas to make the gameplay smooth and fluid and rewarding without removing like all the backtracking and annoyances, like having to open up a menu every time to talk to NPCs and stuff like that, like old Dragon Quest games. Yes, those are cool back then and it has that retro feel, but nowadays it doesn't really need that kind of stuff. You can make good retro games with the modern feel. So, in the end, it's a great game, and I do recommend part of your collection. Just don't pick it up for multiplayer, especially if you're not going to update the game. And overall, the single-player experience was decent. It was challenging a little bit for the reward. Other than the constant falling to death, there is a lot of falling to death in this game, and that's going to be the main difficulty of the game. So like always, thank you all so much for watching. I will provide links down in the description if you're interested to copy. I do recommend the game. I didn't experience any massive game-breaking bugs that prevented progressing, but like always, bugs can be fickle. One person can experience every bug the game has to offer, while another person can play the game and not experience anything, which I experienced minor little hiccups, but nothing that prevented me from progressing other than the multiplayer. So again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next unboxing video. Bye-bye!